Lights, camera, boom. Shelby Oaks, the movie that's been whispered about for years before anyone ever saw a single frame. It's a debut feature made by someone who used to review films for a living. Chris Stuckman, a YouTuber turned filmmaker, stepping out of the commentary chair and into the director's seat. And from the moment the project was announced, that story alone carried its own kind of tension. Could a critic become a creator? Could someone who's spent years dissecting other people's work actually live up to the standards he's always demanded from others? That's not just backstory. That's baggage. And it's the kind of baggage that every frame of Shelby Oaks feels haunted by. Because this isn't just a horror film. It's a film about haunting itself, how memories, guilt, and expectations follow you no matter how far you run. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating. The story starts with Mia, played by Camille Sullivan, a woman haunted by the disappearance of her sister Riley. Years ago, Riley and her friends ran a small paranormal investigation group called the Paranormal Paranoids, documenting their explorations of haunted places and posting the videos online. But one day, they vanished. No explanations. Just silence. Until years later, when strange VHS tapes resurface. The footage is grainy, distorted, and wrong. Something in those frames feels off, like the tape itself is infected. And for Mia, those tapes reopen a wound that never healed. What follows isn't a typical ghost story. It's part mystery, part psychological breakdown, and part found footage nightmare. All orbiting the question: what really happened to Riley? It's a simple premise, but Shelby Oaks turns it into something much heavier. Because it's not really about finding her sister. It's about how grief twists your reality until you start to see ghosts in every shadow. Visually, the film feels drenched in analog atmosphere. You can tell Stuckman loves this era. The VHS static, the CRT glow, the eerie hum of machines. It's a texture we don't see much anymore, and it gives the movie a hauntingly nostalgic quality, like you're watching a curse encoded on magnetic tape. The cinematography, by a relatively small indie crew, leans into that sense of unease. The camera lingers a few seconds too long. It pans slowly, cautiously, as if afraid to find what's hiding just off frame. It's deliberate, restrained, and surprisingly confident for a first-time filmmaker. But what's interesting is that Shelby Oaks doesn't settle on one visual identity. It mixes found footage with traditional cinematography, and that choice creates both tension and confusion. Some moments feel like you're watching a documentary unravel. Others feel like a full-blown cinematic horror. It's ambitious, but that ambition can blur the emotional line. When it works, it's immersive. When it doesn't, it's disorienting. But even that inconsistency feels honest. Like a debut filmmaker trying to balance everything he's ever loved about horror into one movie. What makes Shelby Oaks compelling is how it treats fear. Most horror movies chase the monster. This one chases the feeling of being haunted, that quiet dread that lives between memories. The scares aren't about what jumps out. They're about what doesn't leave. There's a moment, no spoilers, where Mia replays an old tape. And for a split second, you're not sure if you saw something or imagined it. That moment sums up the film's approach. Unease through uncertainty. You start doubting your own perception. And that's powerful horror. Not because it shocks you, but because it lingers. But Shelby Oaks doesn't fully commit to that subtlety. Sometimes, it explains too much. Other times, it holds back too long. It's like watching a filmmaker wrestle with two instincts. The critic in him who wants everything to make sense, and the artist in him who wants to leave it mysterious. That internal tug-of-war runs through the entire film. Let's talk about performance. Camille Sullivan anchors the movie with emotional weight. She plays Mia as a woman barely holding it together, grief, obsession, guilt, and fear all bleeding into each other. It's a grounded performance that elevates everything around it. When the movie slows down, she keeps it alive. When it gets messy, she gives it focus. She's the reason the emotional thread doesn't completely unravel. The supporting cast, especially Brendan Sexton III, add realism to the mystery. No one feels like a typical horror archetype. They feel like real people reacting to an unbelievable situation. And that, again, shows restraint. Because the film could have gone the easy route. Bigger scares, louder performances. But instead, it keeps the horror internal. It's about people believing in something they can't prove, and how that belief corrodes them from the inside. Now, here's where Shelby Oaks stumbles. The pacing. For all its emotional intent, the movie doesn't always know how to move forward. The first act builds tension beautifully, the second lingers too long, and the third tries to tie it all together in a single ambitious sweep. Some scenes repeat ideas we already understood. Some flashbacks feel unnecessary. And by the time the climax hits, you sense the story's weight pushing against its own structure. That's not to say it collapses. It doesn't. But it strains. It feels like Chris Stuckman had so much to say. About grief, about the internet, about belief, about filmmaking, and didn't want to cut any of it out. That's the curse of the debut. Every idea feels like it might be your last chance to express it. And in a way, that mirrors the film's own message. That obsession can drown you if you don't know when to let go. The sound design, though, that's where Shelby Oaks finds its spine. You can tell this film was built for headphones. Every echo, every hum, every burst of static feels like a ghost reaching through the speakers. It's subtle, immersive, and deliberate. The score by Andrew Lofkus never overwhelms the imagery. It creeps. It builds slowly, vibrating under the skin of the film until you realize it's been guiding your emotions the whole time. That restraint gives Shelby Oaks a texture most low-budget horror doesn't achieve. And even when the visuals falter, when lighting feels uneven or edits drag, the sound keeps the mood alive. That's the sign of good direction. Knowing sound can scare us more than sight. But maybe the most haunting thing about Shelby Oaks isn't the story at all. It's the meta layer underneath. A YouTuber who built a career criticizing films makes his own, about a woman documenting the supernatural and losing herself in the process. Think about that. It's art imitating life, and life reflecting back at art. Mia records. Chris records. Mia obsesses over unfinished footage. Stuckman spent years watching and analyzing other people's finished work. Both are searching for something real inside something constructed. It's hard not to read the movie as a metaphor for creation itself, how the act of making can haunt you, consume you, and reveal who you really are. That layer gives Shelby Oaks depth beyond its flaws. It's not just a horror story. It's a confession, disguised as fiction. By the time the credits roll, Shelby Oaks doesn't leave you with a clean resolution. It leaves you unsettled, not because of what happened, but because of what didn't. And that's a brave choice for a debut. Most first-time directors play it safe. They chase clarity, structure, and formula. Stuckman chases feeling. And that makes Shelby Oaks imperfect, but memorable. It's a film that values intention over polish, emotion over precision. And that's what makes it stick. So, the verdict. Shelby Oaks is not a perfect film, but it is a personal one. It's slow, it's uneven, and it doesn't always deliver the scares it promises. But it's made with heart. It's made with belief. And most importantly, it's made with love for horror. Not just as entertainment, but as language. If you walk in expecting another slick studio ghost story, you'll walk out frustrated. But if you meet it where it lives, in the quiet spaces between loss and obsession, you'll find something raw and haunting. This isn't a critic proving he can direct. It's a human being wrestling with what it means to create. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. Shelby Oaks reminds us that horror doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it just needs to whisper something true. Something about how we remember, how we mourn, how we can't let go. And if that truth leaves you haunted, well, maybe that was the point all along.